Welcome everyone, Christine here with the discussion about Starfield and about several controversies that do surround this game, as well as controversy surrounding a particular mod for this particular game. On PC, of course. So the PC version of Starfield is not necessarily the most optimized one. I will say that it's probably the best performing game that Bethesda has ever released. I'm not counting, Doom or anything like that, but that's a ZeniMax situation. But for a Bethesda title, certainly the performance that we're seeing from this game is the highest that we have seen from any title that they have developed. It's probably the most stable release. Fallout 4 wasn't too bad, to be honest, compared to the disaster debacles that were Skyrim and Fallout 3 at launch. Yes, I do remember those games. And I do remember a lot of people loving Skyrim from the moment it came out, even though it had tons of issues. Don't get me wrong, Starfield has a fair share of problems, but in terms of out-of-the-gate performance, it's probably one of the better ones out there. Though I have to call out Todd Howard for saying that this game is well optimized. Maybe by your standards, Todd, considering the pile of shit that you've released in the past, but not by the standards of gaming as a whole. Okay. Now, here's one of the issues that affects this game on PC. This is a game that was developed and optimized on PC with AMD. Intel and Nvidia were not involved. That means Intel and Nvidia hardware runs far worse comparatively. The optimization isn't there. By the way, this is a game that doesn't have ray tracing, doesn't have HDR, at least I don't see it here in the menu, and it still has performance issues. What's the kind of performance with FSR2 enabled, I might add? What's the kind of performance that I do get by default? Around 70-80 FPS. It can drop to below 50, depends on the kind of things that are happening on screen at the time. Now, what's the solution for those performance issues? Well, as opposed, beyond Bethesda doing their jobs and actually optimizing the game properly as they should have done before launch, which is an irritating situation to deal with many developers these days. Beyond that, that particular issue, that particular solution, there's a mod available. So Bethesda fucking up and screwing us over, that's nothing new. I'm gonna say that. Like, if people are surprised by that, they haven't been paying attention to Bethesda from my perspective for a long time. Or they were more than eager to ignore the many issues that Skyrim and Fallout 3 had, and even Fallout 4, and just because. So what's the solution? Well, like with all things Bethesda, the solution to the problems that they themselves create is a mod. Yes, you gotta love that about Bethesda. At least they're consistent in how the problems are fixed. You got a problem with the Bethesda game? Use a mod. It's kind of getting ridiculous, isn't it? Where we are with modding. A paid mod, to be specific. A DLSS mod. DLSS is great for two things. One, obviously the performance. Secondly, it's the best anti-aliasing method on the market. So if you're using DLSS, specifically DLIA, you're going to get the best anti-aliasing that's available in gaming at the moment. There are some things that are close enough to it, but in terms of like performance and just like image quality, then yes, DLSS, DLIA specifically, is the best that's available on the market. People may complain about Nvidia for all the things they're doing. They're investing money in things, that's for them certain. So, there's a mod. It's a paid mod. How do you activate it? How do you use it? Well, you go to Pure Dark's Patreon, you subscribe, you pay $5 monthly, and you get access to the Discord where you can download the mod from. You install it in your game folder, nothing more required, no fancy tricks, maneuvers, or anything like that. Once you're in the game, you can click the end button. You may even change the keybinds. I'm trying to figure it out, but you can replace FSR2 with DLSS and you can enable frame generation, and there's also the most recent version has the fixed scope view. Does it work? Yes, it does. What kind of performance am I getting with this mod? I'm just gonna show it. So right here, there, I don't think that's actually accurate. Hold on a second, there's something wrong with that. So it's saying 64, but Nvidia is saying that I'm actually getting 120. I don't know, like, what's really the case there. NVIDIA is actually saying 130, whereas... So it's probably 60 here by default, but DLSS is generating... but with frame generation, it goes up to 120. So ignoring what Reshade is saying there, because what the mod is basically a modification of Reshade to support frame generation. But ignoring what the mod is saying there, right now I have 130 FPS, from 70 to 80 to 130. That's the kind of performance game. The frame generation can double your frame rate, basically. Like, I can even go as high as 140, 150, and I certainly feel it. I understand frame gen is fake frames. I get that. But I'm gonna tell you one thing. It certainly doesn't feel like, you know, fake frames. Like, if you're talking about input delay, like, I can go to NVIDIA, and while I can't show it because it's annoying, because I'm using NVIDIA to record, and it's annoying, but if I use latency, my latency at the moment with this frame rate is 16, 15, 20 at most, with 140 FPS. I'll take 10 milliseconds in terms of latency for 130, 140, 120 FPS. That is a well worth it trade-off. And this is a mod. Remember this. This is a mod, a paid mod, but it's a fucking mod all the same. If I turn it off, and I do need to, if I turn it off completely, the frame rate drops to 60, which is something that Reshade is showing over here, like 70, 60. Basically, Reshade here is just showing what actual frames. Reshade is just showing what the actual real frames are, whereas what NVIDIA is telling me are the frames combined, like the real frames with the frame gen ones. If like the difference, like you can figure this out. Let me just put it like this. This is with it off. You can feel it. Like, there's obviously a lot of things. YouTube has a 60 FPS limit, so I'm not sure how much you guys are gonna tell the difference here. But that's with it off. That's with it on. This feels a lot better to play. It feels a lot smoother to play at that. Now, I generally don't run with this much FPS. I limit it to 190, something like that. I don't want to stress my system too much. Power consumption, my monitor as well. Yeah, don't want to go too far there for the most part. But when you're considering the situation with the game, going from 60, 70, 80 is a significant improvement, I would say, in like the overall performance of the game. And the difference in terms of like if I turn FSR2 off, if I turn off DLSS, the amount of milliseconds I'm getting is like 3, 4, 10 at most. I'm not joking. Like, that's what NVIDIA is telling me at this moment. Like, right now I have 12, 13 in the exact same area. If I turn on frame gen, the milliseconds go to 17, 18. That is a worthwhile sacrifice, I would argue. Of course, the controversy is that it's a paid mod. And that is something quite a lot of people are unhappy about, for pretty clear and obvious reasons. I would argue. Oh, I'm gonna die. Let's try and not die. Here. This is, by the way, on the highest possible difficulty of the game. Is the very first proper quest you do have, I might add, so it's not like I'm really spoiling anything here. I turned off the voice audio, by the way. So this feels really good comparatively to the base game. There are still performance drops. It's not perfect. I'm not going to argue otherwise. It isn't a perfect situation, but it's certainly a lot better to play with this on than to play with it off, from my perspective. That's one of the things some people don't understand with frame gen. like when you start playing with it and you realize it's something that can be modded, holy shit, is it a night and day difference? Because if it can be modded into a game, it doesn't matter what bullshit backroom deals Nvidia and AMD make. Like, if people can genuinely mod this into a game as Pure Dark has it. Now, Pure Dark is probably doing this full time, and he's likely not doing this alone. If I was making $50,000 a month, I would certainly not be doing this alone. Yes, he's making that much money, 60,000 even, probably more than that. But I don't care. I honestly don't care how much money he's making. He's offering me and a lot of other people something that's very worthwhile. Would I prefer it if it was free? Yes. Would I prefer it if the developers and AMD and Nvidia were not dipshits? Yes, absolutely. I would prefer it, but you know, you gotta take the wins where you can and in the way you can when it comes to gaming, especially over the last couple of years, right? Now, of course, the downside is probably only gonna affect the big AAA the games, right? These kind of mods, but it's not the indie games or small characters that have major performance issues. Although, could we have this in Total War? I'd certainly appreciate it. Just saying, you know, someone asking for a friend. Would very much like having this kind of performance in a Total War game one time. At least on a computer like mine. Though, to be fair, the issue in Total War is more of a CPU issue, so frame gen, while it would certainly have an impact there, to be sure, as it would in any game, it wouldn't necessarily be as significant. But is it okay for a modder to ask money for something he's doing? Well, this isn't a simple mod. This is not the skin, this is not the stat change, this is not something like that. This does require more effort. Like, if it was easy to do, a lot more people would be doing it. Someone did develop a free version. I think it might be based on previous work that Pure Dark has done in some cases. I'm not even having my headphones on, so I'm not even hearing these guys. I think it might be based on previous work that Pure Dark has done. But like that one, the free version has a lot of issues. Now, we always talk about the value proposition. I'm gonna say it outright: $5 for double the frame rate at the cost of $5 and 5-10 milliseconds in response time is something that I am well worth willing to pay. Like, it's so ridiculous as a difference that it's not even worth considering whether or not it's worth it. I would obviously prefer it if Bethesda was doing their jobs properly. I would prefer it if AMD wasn't screwing people over recently. But, and then pretending as if it's not because of them. To be fair, you know, blaming AMD when really it's Bethesda's fault at the end of the day. They took the money, they made that deal, they knew what they were getting into. They just didn't care. Like, you know, we can blame Nvidia and Intel and AMD for everything that goes on with PC performance, but fundamentally, the people that are most responsible for that kind of situation are, you know, the people developing this stuff in the first place. Just gonna say that, because while I am perfectly willing to blame the hardware companies for a lot of the things they've done over their years, I think we shouldn't ignore that. Yeah, the people who are making the games that we're playing are, you know, the ones probably the most responsible for the situation we're dealing with. Just a thought. Just a thought I wanted to share there. Now, Pure Dark, to be sure, is milking this for all it's worth. Absolutely. And now my issue isn't with the fact that he's getting paid for it. I think if you're working on something and he's clearly showing results that are meaningful results, it's not like he's just giving us a 5-10 FPS performance increase. No, he's giving us a night and day difference. Yes, you do need a 40 series GPU, which is expensive. You know, the annoying thing with a lot of games these days is like you pay that much for a GPU, you pay thousands of dollars for a top-end computer, and then the games still run like shit, and then some dipshit like Todd Howard goes out there and says, oh, people need stronger computer. We have stronger computers, asshole. You just start doing a crap job at optimizing your own fucking game. That's the thing that irritates me. You do need a 40 series GPU to really make this work, but and there are issues. There's issues ghosting. There's issues like in how the world might look. It might break at the particular point. There's still frame rate drops. It's not the magic bullet, right? There's still problems. But as far as I'm concerned, but as far as I'm concerned, there's dialogue over here. It doesn't really matter all that much. These are just basically pirates. Anyway, I might die over here. So there's still performance drops, there's still issues, but at the same time, like what Pure Dark is doing is certainly significant, right? It works, it does have an improvement, a very noticeable improvement. It's not perfect, again, but that's something that's more so related to how how Frame Gen works in general. You can't, like, Frame Gen is not a magic bullet. It will improve performance, but you need some kind of good level of baseline performance. Like, basically, the game still needs to be optimized well enough, right? It shouldn't be used as, like, it's not meant to be used in this fashion, suffice it to say, where you're just basically using it as a crutch to make up for the poor optimization of a developer who can give a shit, who can care about doing their jobs properly. That's not how this is meant to work. But sadly enough, that is how it's meant to work. Now, one issue I do have with what Pure Dark has done is the fact that he put that authenticator there. So every time you install it, I think, so you do need, so he's added a form of DRM. I don't think it's a very intrusive form of DRM, to be honest with you, but it's still certainly DRM. That is something that I do have an issue with when we're considering the situation. So that's absolutely something of a problem from my perspective. But the fact that he is doing something like this in the first place, the fact that it does work, is something that is praiseworthy. I'm not happy about the DRM. In general, I hate DRM these days. Like, I've had too many bad experiences with the Nouveau to so it's probably not something like the Nouveau, right? It's not the Nouveau, because the Nouveau hits your performance in a significant fashion. I also don't think Starfield has the Nouveau. Think fuck for that, because screw the Nouveau, really. I get it, it does the job, but like the experience with Hogwarts Legacy, where when people finally cracked that and they were able to play it, like just watching people post videos on YouTube where they get like 20, 30 FPS just because of the Nouveau was infuriating to witness, I gotta tell you. It was not a great thing to see before your eyes. And while, yes, the performance that I do have here is not great in the open world, it is still better than what I would get otherwise. Okay, is Mr. Pirate dead? There we go. But it is not a great state, state of gaming that we have right now. Oh, that is... Oop. Okay. Right. Well, that's all I had to say. Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.